Hey everyone, let's talk once again about my favorite fire starting tool, a flint and steel. I carry one of these with me everywhere I go in my trusty bag. Doesn't matter where I'm going, it's always in my bag, so I always know I have it. I like them because they're lightweight. It's kind of a never fail fire starting system. You're not really in any danger of running out of these like you would with matches or running out of fuel in a lighter. It does take a little bit of technique to do it properly and to get good at it. So I want to cover some tips and tricks, including a couple of new techniques that I just learned that I'd like to share with you and hopefully help you guys get better at lighting fires with a flint and steel. So first, let's talk about what is actually happening with a flint and steel. So most flint and steels that you can buy are going to come with a striker and this, which is, I don't exactly know what kind of material it is. I think it's ferrocerium. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But what is basically happening is you are removing material with this steel striker. You don't have to use the striker. You can use a knife, like your multi-tool that you should always have with you, but you don't want to use the blade. That's just going to damage this edge, and that's another tool that you want to have access to at all times and not unnecessarily damage. But if you've got a saw on your multi-tool, you can use the back edge of that. Now, one of the reasons why you would use the saw is because if you look, it's got a 90-degree spine. This back edge here has nice sharp corners on it. And that's really what you're looking for with anything that you're going to use to scrape against your flint to remove material. If it's rounded, it's not really going to scrape efficiently and you're not going to get material off of it. So what is actually happening, like I said, is you're removing material. If you do it with enough pressure and speed, that material gets hot and turns into a spark, which will then land in your tinder and you can start a fire. All right, so like I said, what you're doing is you're removing material. So if we go fast, we get a spark. But if we go slowly, without as much pressure, you can see we're creating shavings of this material. So what that would allow you to do if you created a little pile of this, it will extend your spark, basically. It's the same material, so when you create a spark and that spark hits this material, it's going to spark again. So it can help you, give you more flame to get a fire going with your tinder. Drawbacks to that: it can be time consuming to get up enough of a pile of this stuff to make it useful. And you're also removing excess material from this and kind of wasting material. It's not really needed to do that. And you can also wear away unevenly. All right, so now let's talk about some techniques for using a flint and steel. One of the most common ones, and probably the least efficient one that a lot of beginners often do, is what I would call a pump scrape. It's where you scrape up and down rapidly and create a huge shower of sparks. Now, the problem with this is it's really inefficient. You don't have a lot of control about where the sparks are going. You're removing a lot of material that you don't need to remove, and you tend to concentrate in between the handle and the end, so you wear away unevenly in the middle of your ferro rod, and that will lead to problems. This will get thin and brittle, and you'll still have a lot of material up near the end, and you'll wind up having it broken and wasting a lot of material. Like I said, you create a huge shower of sparks. They're kind of going everywhere. A lot harder to direct them down into your tinder. There's also the issue with you want to direct the sparks where you want them to go. So if you're creating sparks on the upstroke too, you've got all these sparks coming back at you and really not going anywhere where they're going to be useful. A much more efficient method, which people often move on to next, is just a standard downward scrape. Better than the pump scrape. You're using less material, but you're still not getting an efficient targeting of your sparks into your tinder. The distance that the spark falls from the end of your rod to your tinder, it's cooling off as it's traveling. So you're losing that heat, and it makes it harder for you to actually ignite your tinder bundle. An improvement on that a lot of people eventually figure out is to put the ferro rod next to or in their tinder bundle. So, as you can see, much more controlled with where you get your spark. However, where does your striker actually stop on the ferro rod when you're doing this? The striker stops well before the end because my knuckles hit the surface of where I'm starting my fire. This is going to lead to, once again, uneven wear on your ferro rod and eventually wasted material that you're never going to get to use. Other problems with this, as this is coming down, if the spark lands and a flame does start to kindle, I might smother it with my striker before it can actually get the rest of my tinder bundle on fire. So, an improvement, but still not super efficient. The method that I've been using for years now is to keep my striker locked in place and to pull the ferro rod away. This gives you more control about where the sparks land. I'm not in any danger of smothering any flame that I start, and I'm not in any danger of accidentally breaking up my tinder bundle with my striker. So as you can see, that was much more efficient at getting a flame going. It's more precise. It's going to lead to more even wear because I can pull over the entire length of the ferro rod. There are still two downsides to this, though, that I learned when I learned about this new technique. One is you still have the issue of how far the spark has to travel to land into your tinder bundle. The greater distance it travels as that spark is moving through the air, it's cooling down. So by the time it hits your tinder, it might not have enough heat left to get your tinder going. Another issue is when you're only holding your ferro rod by the handle, you've got leverage to think about. So the closer my striker is to where my fingers are holding, the more force I can apply. When I'm out here, just simple leverage and physics, I'm applying less force. So I can still wind up wearing my ferro rod unevenly. So the fix that I've learned about is you put your striker on your tinder, you hold your ferro rod and you brace it with your finger. So now I've got much more control about where my spark goes. The spark isn't falling as far, it's only traveling the width of my striker. I've got no chance of smothering it accidentally. I've got my ferro rod braced, so I'm definitely getting even pressure over the entire length. so I'm not going to wear it out unevenly. And as you can see, it got that going a lot more easily, and it's lasting. So that's the new method that I'm going to be sticking with from now on when I use flint and steel to light my fires. So not every flint and steel comes with quite such a long lanyard as this one. You can certainly swap out the lanyard on yours if it's too short, but you don't have to use the striker it comes with if you find it hard to hold or you lose it for some reason. Anything with a nice 90-degree spine on it will work. I was showing the saw blade earlier as a potential option. Just playing around with it just now, this is pretty thin and kind of flexible, so I think that makes it a little tougher to actually use. Although not too bad once it's braced on something. I was demonstrating in the snow, so I didn't have a solid surface to really brace against. But that's something that is very helpful, is having a solid surface, a rock or a log or something. Just going through my multi-tool and the various tools it's got. I've got this little flathead screwdriver, little mini pry bar thing. It's pretty thick and sturdy, and it's got a nice 90-degree spine on it. So braced against my rock here. I think that one worked a little bit better. Flint and steel, tips and tricks, better methods of using your tool to get more out of it. Have fun, light fires safely, keep yourselves warm, cook your food, and get outdoors.